Over the past several months, in fact several quarters, there's one brand, one company that can't seem to do anything wrong, and just as well, because it's also kept us very excited. I am of course talking about Tata Motors, no points for guessing. And it's been a time where, it's not just a flash in the pan, it's not just that one thing that seems to have worked. It's an overall strategy that seems to be coming together very smartly at India's biggest car maker. Why is that happening? Well, of course, because lots of decisions have also now come on stream, and it is therefore almost the perfect time to see a big concept rolling out from Tata Motors that points us into the future of what the company will be bringing to us. Of course, an electrified future. Let's talk about this with Shailesh Chandra, who is the Managing Director at Tata Motors Passenger Cars and also Car and Bike's Business Leader of the Year for 2022. Considering how busy a time this has been, I really am, it's almost a miracle that I have time to sit down with you, get a cup of coffee. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's always my pleasure, Siddharth, speaking to you.
I know that you say that lightly, but it is a very busy time, especially now. The Avinya Concept, this is something no one saw coming. It's not the first time Tata has done a concept car, obviously, and we used to almost wait to see what's going to come out at the Geneva show floor from Tata. But I think coming as it has at this time, coming at a time when you already started talking about generation 3 of your electric architecture, the surprise level has been very high. Take us back to where it all started inside the company.
See, Siddharth, when we were thinking of electrification in the country, we had certain point of view in terms of how big this can grow in a certain period of time. And basis that, we always had a vision that we'll have to go with the evolution of how the EV, as not only from a demand perspective, how it is going to evolve, but also how the ecosystem around it is also going to evolve. Also, 2-3 elements that we had considered. One is that at any stage, what will be the demand, what will be the battery prices, and what will be the pull coming from the customers, whether it is a push mode, driven through incentives of the government, or whether it is a natural acceptance of a technology. In the initial phase of this evolution, we thought generation 1 products would serve well, a low demand scenario, low pull scenario, and you go with quick conversion products, substituting the ICE vehicles with a ICE engine and a powertrain with a EV powertrain.
And that idea has been vindicated, obviously.
Correct. Nexon EV and Tigor EV is doing perfectly well, delivering a very compelling value proposition to the customers, and this has built the initial traction because the whole idea was let the customers understand a new technology and start feeling comfortable with that. The mindsets and the mental barriers which were there, around say charging infra, range anxiety and all, to a great extent that has been taken care of because people feel comfortable with even the medium range vehicles that we are giving. So generation 1 is serving the purpose well. As the battery prices have been coming down, secular trend, there can be short-term volatility and all that we can see, but generally the secular trend is downward. And from the time we launched Nexon EV to the time when we would launch the generation 2 products, which 3 weeks back we showed the Concept Curvv, the idea is to now start modifying the current or the ICE platforms that we have to create more orthogonal spaces on the floor to accommodate more battery and therefore deliver higher range. So Gen 1 product was about delivering minimum 250 kilometer range. Gen 2 was about taking it up to 400 to 500 while still keeping it multi-energy, which means electric powertrain also and conventional powertrain also. So that would again overcome certain residual barriers which are still left after Gen 1, which is from a range anxiety perspective. Gen 3 was again when the battery prices further come down, where you will be able to give more power, energy and more, batteries in the vehicle at a price that still a customer feels justified about an electric vehicle. At that point in time, you come with generation 2 because then it gives you all the degrees of freedoms that you need because it does not has the limitation of also enabling the car for a conventional powertrain.
And you're not strapped in by having the need to, or compelling need to have that kind of a variant existing like ICE powertrain.
Correct. So the Gen 3 is about this pure EV, which can have a lot of space, in the center of the wheels to put, battery packs which can completely overcome the range anxiety. So this was the idea behind this. So all these generation products were thought through. It was about when is the right time to position them in the market. We wanted to give a full visibility of this thought process and this vision. And that's the reason last year when we grew by 5 times, we thought that it is time now to introduce the Gen 2 and Gen 3 so that people get a full visibility of what will be coming, right? Now, pure EV, given the degrees of freedom that you get, it also opens a lot of possibilities of innovating. The styling can be completely different because exterior styling of a car follows how the underpinnings are designed, right? Or what are the limitations coming out of the underpinnings. So you need a bonnet because you have to place an engine inside, and then you need some luggage space, so there is a boot, and therefore you have to follow that contour, right? And that is the limitation of a conventional car. Here, it releases those limitations.
Yeah.
Therefore, you can reimagine what a car can be when it is a pure EV. So it combines the strength of pure EV, introduces a novel design concept, and also takes advantage of the advent that we are seeing in the technology space. Combine all this to deliver absolutely a new experience to the customers, because new age customer today is looking for wellness of mind and body. At the same time, travel, which is right now a discontinuity between what you experience at home and office, can be made more continuous. So we use the 3 elements of pure EV, novel design, and the advent of technologies to give and deliver this experience, and that is what this concept Avinya is about. This has been the thought process.
Now, I want to dwell on one point that you just made, which is about providing a certain visibility that came from a sense of confidence, given the last year's performance. That this part is the thing that I think surprised me and a lot of people. That, like you said, 3 weeks ago you spoke about Gen 2. You showed a concept that excited everybody, and it showed a future direction. And then you're already talking about Gen 3, and you're already talking about an even longer sort of time perspective or longer term perspective. Why was it important to do them in such quick succession?
One, that all these 3 generations are supposed to coexist, because the idea is that we are going to give plethora of choices to the customers depending on what is their purchasing power, affordability levels that they can really afford to go for, or the range that they are looking for, depending on whether they just want to use this as a city car or they want to also go outside for outdoorsy experiences. And therefore, we just wanted to give a glimpse of all these 3 generations, so that one, it instilled confidence in the stakeholders, which is the customers. At the same time,
you're in it for the long haul.
Yes, for the long haul. What is ultimately the vision? Why we wanted to show Generation 2 and Generation 3? Because there is a journey where we want to make EVs aspirational. When we started our journey with Gen 1, EVs were perceived, very poor in terms of its perception. They were perceived as, small cars, low-range car having less than 100 kilometers, low on performance, right? There's absolutely no aspirational quotient associated with EVs. To a great extent in Gen 1, we were able to deliver a superior experience, right balance of price, range and features, and it has worked well. Gen 2 takes the aspiration to the next level and helps in overcoming some of the residual barriers, as I said, which is there. Gen 3, with the concept of Avinya, it becomes desirable, right? The desirability level of EVs become high. And therefore, by showcasing EVs in this form will also trigger a lot of excitement about EVs in the country. And the country needs to move faster towards electrification, and therefore giving a glimpse of how electric vehicles will start defining the future of mobility has been the idea of showcasing all 3 generations. Also, since we said that Curvv is going to come in 24 months and Avinya is targeted by 2025, we thought that this is a good time period for us to show the concept and start taking inputs from the customers more proactively. so that if we have to make
refine the
certain adjustments,
final, yeah.
we should not depend just on our hypothesis, incorporate them so that when it is at the time of launch, it is fully ready and aligned with what the customer is expecting. This has been the thought behind.
No, and I have to say that for the average person, understanding timelines in the automotive context has never been a thing. But even now, if you think about it, 2025 is just 3 years away. It's not like we're talking, many, many years away. And the point about the three coexisting, I think, is also something that is finally being understood better. Gen 2, what is the kind of potential you see? Because that's going to be the interesting space even for the market, where people will have, that little bit of doubt or dithering. Maybe a second vehicle in the family could be electric, but they still want to sort of hold on to that ICE version. Is that why you specifically look at Gen 2 being, for lack of a better word, hybrid in the portfolio sense?
See, even in Gen 1, our hypothesis has gone wrong because we always thought that this is going to be the second car.
Much higher than you
Yes.
expected.
And that is how it started, Siddharth, because when we launched the car, only 25% of the people were considering this as their first car or a primary car. Rest to the 75%, it used to be
It's
a
a
second
novelty,
car.
yeah.
Right. As of the exit of last financial year, we saw this use as a primary car or a first car has gone up to 65%, which means that already people are realizing that for daily use, actually I should be using this. And also given the way the petrol prices have been increasing, it just makes tremendous sense. And also when you drive a EV, it is very difficult to then go back to a petrol car. Rather, I'm seeing that conventional cars are being kept as a backup, right? If you have to really go somewhere outside. Gen 2 will also overcome that anxiety and give more freedom to people to start thinking of just keeping one car which is EV. If it can do 400 to 500 kilometers, we have analyzed that 70% of the intercity drives are not more than 150, 160 kilometers, which even actually a Gen 1 can do. But still you don't get that comfort because on highways, there's a bigger compromise on the range, right? So since the charging infra is also evolving over a period of time.
It's only going to get better.
Yes, it is only going to get better. With Gen 2, I think it is going to become more mainstream. With Gen 3, you would not even talk about range anxiety, is what I would say. So this is how the evolution will happen. And therefore, Gen 2 will have a purpose for a time period. It will come at a certain price point. And the price point can actually be with a lot of overlap with Gen 1. Because today, we have shown, you know about 2 Gen 1 products. We have shown a Curvv, which is Gen 2, and we are showing Avinya, which is Gen 3. These are only 4 products. We have promised 10 products.
Yeah, the portfolio is much larger.
So each of these generations are going to add more products. And there is a possibility that a Gen 2 product will be lesser in price than some of the Gen 1 products. So it'll be a lot of overlap because Gen 2 is more defined from how we have handled the architecture underneath. And therefore, it will not have to do with the price points, I would say.
But Shailesh, the skeptics would have swarmed you 3 years ago if you told them all this. Today, the acceptance and understanding, maybe in some cases reluctant, has sort of cemented itself. So now everybody, I think, believes in your plan. They understand the strategy and the potential. To put it, mildly, I think you've kind of seemed to have struck gold with it as well. What's the worry? What could go wrong? Because there's so much talk about, lithium supply being a massive roadblock in the future. Because right now, you're literally the only mass player who's doing this. We've heard plans from many people, but we've still not seen the proof of that. What happens when everybody is doing this at maybe 10% volume or maybe 20% volume of their entire sales?
So, once, more players come in, it's just going to expand the volume even further, is what I think. It is really
And that should help pricing too, but supply, are you worried?
Yeah, so competition is not a problem because it is just an enabler of further expansion of volumes. As far as supply side is concerned, that will always lag a bit behind demand because demand is going to now shoot up, with all these kind of choices coming in the market. Also, the government has been regulating the emission norms and all in a manner with CAFE penalties and all, that there will be a push-pull factor both. Where I say push-pull factor, because OEMs will be forced to go for electric vehicles to manage the CAFE regulations, and pull because over a period of time, say, to date there are 25,000 electric vehicle customers. Each customer would be talking and influencing 5 others. So there is already a lot of talk, there's a lot of coverage that electric vehicles get. So there will be a natural adoption. So from that perspective, demand should not be a problem. Yeah. Supply side, at a manufacturing level, the capacities will come. On the supply at a tier 1 level, the suppliers will also, with slight lag, build capacities and do localization, and that effort is on from our side. The challenge might come at tier 2, tier 3 level. When I say tier 2, 3 level, it goes to a cell level or a mine level, right? Where things don't happen overnight. For a mine to get active, a lithium mine would take about 6-7 years. So it takes time. But good thing is that there was an anticipation of this going up, not only because of, I would say, cars, but also because of white goods and so many things which are consuming lithium ion.
Some of that is in motion now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right now we are definitely seeing some stress because all of a sudden, this 1.5-2 million market of EVs globally has gone up to 4.5 million because of simultaneous demand expansion in China, Europe and US. All the 3 big markets, which in history would not have seen, that all have grown simultaneously. And then India also. So there is a stress, in the lithium mining side because new capacities are just coming up. So it's a short-term volatility what I see because there are new capacities which are coming in. Also remember that 4 million vehicles sold last calendar year, and before that 2 million and 2.5 million. Recycling was also going to kick in now. And when recycling starts supporting the input side, I think things will be more stable. So that's one. So I would say that lithium and all is not going to be a big problem because reserves are there. It is only about how the mining capacities would get open and ramped up. There are more breakthroughs also which are being looked at in the battery space. And whenever there is intense constraint coming somewhere, the innovation, invention and breakthroughs also kick in. And this space, there's a lot of research work which is going on. So I would say certain breakthroughs might also help going forward. Therefore, I am more optimistic about the situation of EVs. And also remember that every government across the world is committed to the climate change issue. So EVs will be given priority through all kind of interventions, policy interventions, whether it is incentives, penalizing.
We'd like to see more here, to be very honest.
Correct.
It hasn't quite happened yet.
Absolutely. So,
would like to see more.
But with government's commitment, you are seeing that motion. And therefore, if you see all these considerations, what will be the future of mobility points towards EVs only.
So 2 quick things here. One is about, and this I don't want to sort of take too much time on, but the concern that keeps coming up again and again is also about electricity production and supply. That once there's going to be a sizable number of these cars that are going to require charging, do we have the electricity infrastructure to keep up with that? You have a natural advantage with Tata Power being a part of this process with you, sort of looking into this already. Is that a concern area, or it's something that's being addressed already?
So, I remember, seeing the data that if penetration of electric vehicles goes to say 15-20% level also, it's just a small single-digit percentage of what will be the total power percentage of total power supply that electric vehicles would consume. So therefore, I don't see a big concern or a big requirement getting added because of just EVs.
Load factors and things like that. I think that's the bigger worry. It's not so much about supply. It's about being able to set up chargers and those.
Which is absolutely right. When you talk about fast chargers, it's an issue because the grids would have to be upgraded. Today, if I, for example, think of putting a charger at a food mart on the highway, it's not enabled for doing a 25 kilowatt, putting off 25 kilowatt charger also. So I think as this ramp up gains space, there will be method and mechanisms which will be found out to do this. Upgradation will happen as power companies will respond to an increase in the load factor and all. And I believe, basis what I hear from Tata Power, is that they are also seeing that the demand is increasing in certain pockets on electrification, and wherever it is required, say in residential society, where in certain residential societies the EVs have gone up. So within the society also you need to then increase the capacity of transformers and all. Yeah. So that is being done, but it will maybe to start with it will follow how the demand is going up. It's but also not happening overnight. Yeah. It's going more gradual, so there will be time to respond to that. But the issue that you are saying is absolutely right. If it can be more proactive, it's going to be better.
Preparedness would be
we have
better.
Also been reaching out to certain government authorities that if we can do some proactive work in terms of upgrading the grid, to prepare it for having greater density of public charging, that will be better.
All right, just a couple of things that I want to ask you now, because I know that you have a long day. The first is something you alluded to in your previous answer, which is you said capacities will sort of also follow, and you're taking that into your account in your planning. Current capacities, once Gen 2 kicks in, further capacity requirement, and then I'm not even going to talk about Gen 3. We keep hearing news about you acquiring a certain plant. How close are you to actually needing more capacity? Let's get that understanding.
With Gen 1 itself growing as far as demand is concerned, and Gen 2 further adding to that, because we want to move fast in terms of penetration of electric vehicles, there will be need of capacity.
And your share has gone up dramatically the last year.
So we are pretty close to very high levels of utilizations, and the next level of debottlenecking actions we have already taken, which should help us further enhance the in-house capacity to the extent of 20% or so. Beyond that, we would need capacity. We would need capacity, and we have already planned for that. We are keeping all options open. If through organic means, through inorganic means, we are exploring all these options. Nothing has got concluded, but either of them will happen to support the capacities which will be required to facilitate growth that we want to achieve in EVs, as well as on the ICE side. In both the areas we want to grow, with new models coming in. The current set of models that we have is not also fully saturated in terms of supporting the demand that we are getting. So all in combination definitely needs additional capacities, and we have option A, option B, option C all ready to be executed. And
option is option F.
And decision points have been defined, that by this time we will have to take a decision, otherwise it will
so what is that point? I don't want to try and force you to give me an answer that you don't want to, but what is that point? At what point will you be worried if something hasn't happened yet, or that decision
It has to be within this financial year.
Okay, fair enough. And which is why then the attraction of an existing plant, right? Because you can move faster.
Yeah, so within the current plants that we have scope of expanding to the extent that we can double the capacity of that facility, because we have space. So that's not a problem.
Okay, so that is something I'm going to keep sort of knocking on your door, asking when are you ready with an answer, because it's interesting. And the speculation aside, the big question is, if you acquire an existing plant, how much retooling do you need to do, which is EV specific, because obviously the existing plant is ICE specific. So which is why it will be interesting to watch. But last topic then is about this great performance over the last.
But it would be good to clarify that for Gen 1, Gen 2.
Even for Gen 2? Gen 1 I understand.
Yeah, even for Gen 2.
Okay.
You would need for Gen 2, new body shop interventions that you would need. But otherwise,
that's always model specific.
Otherwise, most of the facilities you can use. You can literally convert 100% of ICE capacity to EV capacity. That's not a problem.
That's actually reassuring and good to know, because it also allows you to quickly react to demand.
So that's why I'm saying internal capacity will not be a bottleneck. It's the tier supplier capacities.
Yeah. And which is going to be worrying.
Their capacity also, not in terms of installed capacity, the component and input material supplies.
Yeah. Okay, so in keeping with all of that, then the last point I want to talk to you about is this great performance over the last year. We have spoken about it before, and I think what it has done, forget about all the great headlines about market share, etc., but it's just moved a lot of your vehicles, a lot of your models into people's consideration sets. Given that situation today, you're sitting at a very interesting juncture. you have to approach the market differently. You're talking to new kinds of consumers, so you have to approach them differently. What's changing on the ground in terms of network, dealer training, executive training, just how you are dealing with this newfound demand?
There's a lot changing, on the ground because there's a new, I would say, renewed workforce which has been specially trained. We have programs like Sales Sutra and all, which is being guided by us to the dealers, being implemented across the dealership. And these are not just focused on technical training, which is a routine job you do to make the sales executive understand the technical aspects so that they can freely communicate, but more on the softer aspects. How you have to communicate with different categories, because we serve a 4 lakh car segment also and a 25 lakh car segment also, so and an EV customer also from the same outlet. So we have very specialized training given to address these customer segments, which we are facilitating. That is also true on the service side. The whole look and feel of the showrooms are changing, and this is being driven very dramatically. This has changed in the last 1 year. We are adding new dealers with a mindset which is slightly different, because these are fresh dealers with good financial background, good experience in the automotive industry, especially for the segments in which we are. But we are also allowing the existing dealers who have been performing well, who have really adjusted and adapted to the new situation, to grow, because they have been with us for so many years. So all these interventions are in place, and once you go to the showrooms today, you will feel that the experience is different. So these are the interventions that we are.
And within the company, there must be this new sense of sort of achievement and pride, awards like Manufacturer of the Year, etc. That's obviously giving everybody wings.
Absolutely, that is true for the entire value chain, I would say, external, whether it is suppliers or the channel partners. Internally, there's huge energy. I mean, people are just too kicked with this winning habit. As you say, winning is always a habit, and people just work as a team together. This kind of teamwork we had never seen, because this desire to win is so intense, and this is a big change which I see internally. And orientation to support a customer. I'll just give example of, if there is any field issue, it used to be a problem of just customer care department, but today, in the last 2 years, we have created rapid response teams, where there's an engineering person, there's a manufacturing person, there's a quality person, and customer care all team up together and immediately rush to a place if there is an urgent need to resolve a problem. So I think these kind of changes are happening, and that's the reason why you are seeing much better responsiveness than what the industry itself was being known for. Not only Tata Motors, the responsiveness used to be low, but it has tremendously improved.
More power to you, more power to your teams, and can't wait to see all the product action that's coming, which we know is coming from your side. Appreciate the time today. Thank you for sitting down with me and having this chat.
My pleasure, Siddharth. Thank you.